What up, Naughty Steppers? It's Connor Whitmore here again with another review for you on the Nawtystep channel, and today I'm going to be talking about the new Jauz album, The Wise and the Wicked. But I'm not going solo for this one. As you can see, I am joined by the one and only Landon Fleury, aka Landon Remixes. How are you going? How's it going, man?
Oh, life's good, man. Life's real good. Wish I was getting more stuff up on my channel, but that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, we all wish for these things, you know. Landon is someone whose channel I've been watching for a few years now. One of the main undoubted inspirations for this channel, and one of the first electronic music YouTube reviewers, to my knowledge. Is that correct?
I think I was the first. I mean, if you consider like Fantano, because he covered like a lot of electronic music, but like in regards to strictly or like mostly electronic music, I'm pretty sure I was the first. Unless there's one that wasn't in like English that I'm unaware of, because I think.
When did the wonky angle come in?
He started, I think, about a year and a half after I did, something like that. But cool. He's a cool guy. He's a good guy. I enjoy making videos with that guy. So
yeah, Landon kind of delves more into the, I mean, pardon me if I'm wrong with this, but the more kind of strictly EDM side of electronic music, like the lighter stuff. He does the odd full-out bass music review, dubstep, you know, drum and bass, the odd trap thing here and there.
I kind of try to do
mostly.
Sorry,
yeah,
I was gonna say I just try to do a little bit of everything. I do a little bit of bass music, a little house. It's just mainly I'd say it's artists that have stuck out to me in the past, and I just feel like, oh, they put out a project. Let's review it, you know.
Let's review it. Why not? Let's just spit some opinions on it. But yeah, obviously, main watchers of this channel are all up about their bass music. So if you want to see some opinions on the lighter side of things with electronic music, then definitely consider giving his channel a subscribe. I will link his channel in the description box down below. But it's good to finally have you on this channel and spitting some opinions, man. Yeah,
I'm excited to be here too. Just to give a little background, if anybody didn't already catch the Ghastly review that we did, I'm pretty sure we talked in that review about potentially reviewing this album together. So
yeah,
here it finally is.
Yeah, I was literally just about to mention that as you did. Yeah, we covered the Mystifying Oracle a few months back, and we definitely did mention the Jauz one before that, and even in that video as well. So yeah, it's been a while in the process, but now we're finally here.
Yeah.
And this album from Jauz. It is such a big project. There is a lot to address. Exactly, there is a lot to address at 23 tracks. So I think you're gonna have to bear with us a little bit, guys, as we kind of navigate our way through this. It's going to be more of a conceptual look or thematic look at this album, as opposed to going through it track by track, because there is just so much to wade through. And I think a lot of it adheres to it being a conceptual thematic album anyway. Like there's a lot of genres that are repeated throughout the 23 tracks. And yeah, I think, you know, Jauz is someone who kind of inspired the bass house boom from around 2014, and since then he's just been delving into loads of different genres, not signing to any label, collaborating with loads of artists along the way. And this album is very much a kind of representation or encapsulation of those ideals. It's got loads of collaborations on it. He goes in and out of loads of genres. And I suppose the first question I want to pose is, does he show here by producing in all of these genres that he can produce them or not?
Oh, geez. So, do you mean like, can he produce them good? Or just that, like, do you think...
Okay, so imagine someone talking generally about this album, and they really like it, and they say, "Oh, but look, Jauz can do all of these things. Sorry, he can produce in this genre and this and this." But then detractors might say, okay, he's doing that, but he's not doing any of them actually that well.
See, I think I'd be more on that side, though I don't know. I feel like you can't make, in general, at least in my experience with bass music albums, I feel like it's hard to make a bass music album that is just one particular genre and make it good. Most of my favorite bass music projects, i.e. Barely Alive's 2 albums and those kind of things, I feel like are when the producers are kind of delving into different kinds of things. So I guess in that aspect, I think Jauz made a decent album because like he's going into, there's like drum and bass tracks, there's like some future bass. Someone referred to Superfly as like Russian hard bass house that I saw in like a YouTube comment. So it's like he's doing all these different things, and I think to an extent he is doing a decent job of blending his sound into that. But I still would say I'm more on the end of people who are saying like he just didn't necessarily do it that well on this album.
Yeah, I think there is just too much kind of dipping into different styles.
Yeah.
And it's kind of an extension of what you're saying. And even, you know, tying into how many tracks there actually are, I kind of come out of listening to this thing thinking, you know, you've made 23 tracks, including the, you know, the kind of the chapter tracks that are kind of the interludes that are kind of littered within.
Mm-hmm.
But you could have made way fewer and made those songs that you did just a lot more substantive and, you know, with a load more quality to them. I don't know, just
for sure.
A lot of them seemed like demos or half-baked ideas that wouldn't quite make the cut on a fantastic album. But on something like this, when he's being so ambitious and just trying out so many things, I mean, you are just bound to get a load of them that are half-baked and that just don't really seem like they're offering that much.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. What's the track with Mike Waters? Fade? It's like I definitely agree with you, especially in that track. It's like the drum and bass track that Jauz kind of does, and the kicks and snares to me just sound like very amateur. Like it's drum and bass from someone who isn't. It feels like drum and bass from someone who isn't really that familiar with the genre to me.
Yeah, I definitely got that impression as well. The note that I've written for that track, the main note is drum and bass, but kind of not. So, because as you say, it's like it's there and you can hear the percussive structure, but it's just so, I don't know, it's so kind of loosely constructed that it doesn't really sell itself completely as that. And I think you can say that for many tracks on this thing. For
sure.
But yeah, a lot of decent songs there actually as well, though.
No, I totally agree with that.
If you had to, I suppose, if you had to kind of pick a couple, like maybe 2 or 3 that you would say really, really stand out, or even maybe that's pushing it. But yeah, any highlights for you across?
I mean, honestly, like I'd say the biggest highlights for me actually. I didn't like it that much, but the tune that the Snails collaboration I actually liked a lot. And I didn't like it for reasons that I thought I was originally going to like it when this track was announced. I was thinking like, oh, Jauz sound design, Snails sound design kind of working together, that's going to be really cool. And then it ended up just being really different. But the result I actually think is okay. Like it's just a good track that they happened to make together. Really enjoy like the bass line on that one, for example. I also really enjoyed the acid or techno tune. Sorry, what were you going to say about that?
No, I was just going to add to that the point that the bass line in that track is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty bonkers. But yeah, I enjoyed acid or techno, regardless of the fact that I don't think the song is technically acid or techno. I think it's more of like a tech house song. But yeah, I still really enjoyed that one. Actually, I liked to Get With It a bit too. I'm not sure if I'd necessarily say that was my favorite, but I liked all of these tracks to an extent. This one just kind of sounded like your classic Jauz tune. And then I liked Okay, first of all, I want to say, and I don't want to thrust us into the conceptual side of this like quicker than we want to, but I enjoyed the sequence of the prologue and Babylon together. Though I don't.
Do you mean Babylon coming after the prologue?
Yeah, like both of the tracks kind of working in harmony together. I think instrumentally, at least, the prologue is pretty impressive, and I like the drop too. I guess like I don't think it's an absolutely amazing like dubstep track, but like for what it is and working the prologue in this point in the album, I think it works and does its job. And then Babylon, I like the way that ties into that. The lyrics are like, "Wicked Babylon, your days are numbered," and I feel like it kind of ties into the wicked side of this, which is I feel like these first couple tracks are trying to go for that side of this album. And then I'm not sure. I mean, there were I'd say just like there are other tracks I liked for different reasons. I'd say, and it's like I would say the Snails collaboration might actually be my standout like favorite on this album, but there were definitely a few others that I thought were like decent as well. So it's hard for me to pick out like a top three. But I liked Keep the Rave Alive. Actually, like for not for reason that I think it's like a fantastic electro track, but it reminds me of like 2012 Knife Party a bit.
Mate, yeah. Actually, my notes for this track are, hang on a second, very Knife Party.
Yeah.
Not completely watertight, but a good idea overall.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember the ending to that track, but it literally just sounds exactly like a Knife Party song.
Yeah, like maybe
like
Rage
kind of
Valley.
going off into the distance. Yeah, exactly. Rage Valley, or even The Island Part 2 from Pendulum. You know, it's got that kind of glistening feel to it. You know, looking out over the ocean, kind of sun rising. It's just classic. It's classic Rob Swire and Gareth McGrillen. But it was a very good Knife Party tribute from the boys there.
Yeah, it's solid. I think it's a cool track anyway. Not necessarily something I'd listen to like by itself a lot, but in terms of like, since this album is so big, I guess it's cool to see a track that like it kind of takes this direction. I guess like it's
definitely
decent. I like the tune with High Pression. I think that out of like the bass house tunes, I'd say that was definitely one of my favorites. It had a lot of really interesting sound design, I think, that attracted me, and like rhythmic structures that were cool. And I
really like the vocal in that track as well.
Yeah, for sure. And then I like the tune Rave With Me, although it reminds me a lot of like Dion Timmer, like a lot of Dion Timmer. I'd say that's like not necessarily a complete rip off of his style, but at least in the intro and like the mid sections, I think a lot of that was like that is definitely what Jauz and Ducky were going for there. And then the drop was a little bit more, I don't know, would you call it like UK dubstep, kind of more toned back, just like I don't know.
I wouldn't say the dubstep in that track hit hard enough for me.
No, I don't think it's really trying to necessarily.
It was the kind of thing where like, I hate to say it, but the mix down, I don't know if you noticed the mix down in that track, but the mix downs for the drops were just absolutely shocking. And it was a kind of track that I could imagine like Marshmello playing, and then you know, someone's taking a video of him from behind and he kind of turns around and does his little twirly fingers like that. Just like I could just see him dancing to that track, and that's kind of what, I don't know, it sounds bad, but that kind of put me off it, just the vibe that it was giving off. And it's funny that you mentioned Dion Timmer, because I'm actually quite surprised in a way that he didn't feature on this album, considering how much of that kind of music is on this thing.
Yeah, I that would have been cool to see Dion on this, but you know, I'm okay with the one feature he did this year with Lax. You know, it's fine. Speaking of Marshmello, though, strangely enough, there are actually a couple different tracks on this album that were like giving me like massive Marshmello vibes, and I can't actually remember, because I'd say they were kind of forgettable, but what was it? There was one at the end and one toward the beginning. Anyway, that really reminded me of Marshmello quite a bit. It might have been Soldier with Cruella, might have been one of them, but Anyway.
Oh gosh, I really had to soldier on through that one. I'm telling you that much.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I did not enjoy the hook on that song at all. Like I
just feel like, you know, Jauz and Cruella, I feel like their voices just could have been on a much like larger, more epic track than that one.
No, I totally agree with that. And it's like, I don't know. I've liked some of Cruella's recent stuff. I think they've had some good tunes. And it's interesting to see them kind of take the pop direction though, because I feel like Cruella from like 2013 would have featured really nice with Jauz, like his signature sound. I feel like that could have worked in a really cool way. But like Jauz trying to do pop music and the mix of like Cruella doing that didn't exactly vibe with me, I guess. I did want to note though, my other track that I'd say is one of my favorites is the tune Frequency that Jauz did with Adventure Club. At first, I don't
know a lot about Adventure Club, I must
say,
so kind of like detail, I don't know, kind of if you can just kind of explain what their style is and how much you can hear it in this track, if at all.
Okay, so Adventure Club, they're kind of known, I guess you could kind of call it like poppy melodic dubstep. Like they have their own brand of like melodic dubstep that's like different from, let's say, like Seven Lions, AU5, Fractal, that kind of vein. Yeah, so it's interesting because the lead melody in this song, I'd say, sounds like an Adventure Club melody, but the sound design all sounds like Jauz, so I think that kind of collides in a really cool way. I'd say the main thing that I actually didn't like about the track, and I feel bad about it because, like, R.I.P. Kyle Pavone, I didn't actually like the vocal appearance that much. I thought it was kind of dry. Yeah, I feel bad about that, but that was...
Wait, so are you saying that has that guy passed away?
Oh yeah, like, I can't remember if it was actually before this album came out or after, but Kyle Pavone is the singer from We Came as Romans, and he featured on this, and I think it was after he passed away, so between the album's release and this video, that happened, and I feel bad. Like, I think it was like an accidental overdose. It was just a messy situation, but...
I didn't know that. That's upsetting to hear.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we have said that we won't, you know, stick too closely to analysing these this album on a track-by-track basis. But just lastly, I'm quite interested as to what you thought about the DJ Snake collaboration, which I think comes at quite an important point in the album. It's like a big track to gear us up for the final chapter in the story.
So I get
it's a decent beat. It's, you know, it's purposeful. There's a nice bounce to it, but I still don't feel like it really does anything. Yeah,
honestly, the whole, if you're looking at this album at least from like how Jauz sets this up conceptually, the whole back and this whole last 6-track section is a complete mess, I think. And I guess like I guess the Jauz or Gassed Up kind of sets the tone for that complete mess. I don't think it's a bad track. Like this is the kind of tune that I feel like DJ Snake like gets up on the DJ decks and he's like yeah, and everyone's jumping and dancing around. But it's like it's not the kind of track I'm ever going to enjoy in the context of an album. Like it's a fun little DJ. I'd say it's like a fun little DJ tool more than anything. But I like, especially with like the theme of this album and like this whole back half, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, fair enough. I kind of get that. It does seem a bit out of place. I mean, there are tracks of a similar tempo and pace and BPM, whatever, but it just seems a bit too abrasive, almost a bit kind of ill-fitting with the whole concept of the album.
Especially coming right after that last one too. Like, at least I'm not going to get into my opinions of it right now, but it's supposed to be like this big conclusion wrap up, and it's like big epic soundtrack music going on in the background, and then it's just like boonch 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 boonch. Like right after. I don't know.
It's very out of place. But that song does come after I think it's the final chapter.
Yeah, directly after.
And I was quite interested as to what you thought of these because For me, I think, you know, it's quite a hard thing to take on for any producer.
Okay.
And it's a massive thing that he's trying to do here, you know, craft a story, you know, tell a tale. And I think the words in these things, for the most part, are actually quite interesting. I think it is a nice story, and it does lure you in and make you want to follow it and kind of pick which side you would be on and whatnot.
Yeah.
But there's something about the vocal delivery that just screams to me like, you know, movie of the summer. You can't wait for this one. It's going to be amazing. You know, it's just something about that, and that the voices and the way in which they were delivered kind of, I don't know, it kind of distracted me from enjoying the words and kind of the journey that they were taking me on. I don't know how you felt about it.
Okay, so first of all, I'll say, and I have a lot to say on this regard. So my first time through this album, I know when I was listening through the prologue especially, I was really intrigued by what this album was going to bring, because I don't know, like when I was thinking, especially like back when we were doing that Ghastly review, I was thinking like, I don't know how Jauz is going to put together an album. Like I can't imagine it being better than this one. Like really, I kind of pictured kind of a similar thing happening. But I was actually really intrigued when I heard that this was going to be a concept album, and when I started listening through this and it was kind of getting into like the dialogue and everything, and like the cool like epic orchestral instruments kind of going on in the background. The thing here is, like, you remember how I mentioned that I really like the sequence of prologue and Babylon. I really don't enjoy much of the sequencing on this album after that. Like, it just doesn't, like, as a concept, as like it's flowing, it doesn't really work for me, especially once we get from Babylon into In the Zone with Example. It feels like we've gone into like this post-apocalyptic setting, into like, you know, modern day like UK, you know. It's just it feels odd to me. And then, you know, my first time listening through it, I was intrigued going back, and I was like kind of excited to hear the chapter interludes and like, oh, what's going to happen next? How's the story going to progress from here? But for me, I don't know, you go into chapter 1 and 2, where, or I guess chapter 1, 2, and 3, where like these representatives from each side, the wise and the wicked, are talking, and they just sound like ridiculous, like fake politicians, and like I just wasn't intrigued by it. So like as I'm going through the tracks, it's like I'm listening to this ridiculously long dance album in anticipation of these little interludes that really, to me, are not that rewarding. And like you said, the voice acting just doesn't really hit. It's not convincing. It doesn't make me feel anything. Like it doesn't make, at least beyond the prologue, beyond Babylon, it goes from me being pretty intrigued and immersed into what the album is going to bring forward, into like I'm just completely disattached from the whole thing.
Running out
I guess.
So in an ideal world, would you take these bits out, or would you?
So here's
either you take them out, or how would you make them better?
So I'm actually going to tie this into something that I read recently. So I guess Jauz, I don't know, it might have been like within the last month or something. He was talking about how basically this album sets up the next leg of his career. Like essentially he's splitting Jauz into like two different sides. So he's going to be doing wise sets and wicked sets, which I imagine like the wicked sets are going to be his like, did you see him at Lost Lands? I think he said I
saw the last like 10 minutes, but yeah,
okay.
he did do that. But
I think he was saying he was going to do like a wicked set at Lost Lands, and then like kind of go from there. So he's going to have like two different veins of music. But I don't think this was the right way to execute it. If I were somehow in charge of putting this album together and like its track list and everything, I would take out all the chapters. I would use the Wise and the Wicked intro where it is, and I'd have the first disc be like the Wicked and like all the heavy bass music stuff. Do like a 2-disc album, have like the first side of it be like that big heavy bass music stuff, and then the second one be the Wise stuff that he's kind of doing, like the poppy and more melodic kind of stuff. And that way they're kind of separated into their own compartments, rather than it being just a complete jumbled mess like it is, you know.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good idea, kind of splitting it into those two things, and you know, that would probably make for a much easier listen,
Yeah.
because you know you're just dipping into one mood, dipping out of that, and then going straight into another one, and it's like that is more like, this is Jauz. He can do the heavy stuff across all of these genres,
Yeah.
and there you can see it, and he can also do the lighter, prettier stuff in all of these genres, and there you have it. And it's kind of like, it's such a straightforward thing to have done, but instead, as you're saying, it's all jumbled up, which makes for a very disjointed listening experience.
Oh, for sure. And I think it would also work better with what he's doing for the live sets, because the songs would fit together in a similar way that he's doing with his DJ sets and everything.
I think you briefly touched on the quite heavy like UK scene influence in this album. There's quite a lot of bassline kind of beats in this thing. There's some like garagey kind of stuff. There's a lot of UK pop, like throwback tracks. Obviously, you've got Example in there, and I was kind of interested as to like what you thought about this as something, you know, that is him calling back to the roots of electronic music almost, and bass music in particular. You know, the bits that I saw of his set at Lost Lands, he was playing like Amal K and, to my mind, like Chase and Status and stuff like that. So I just want to know how much of a comeback that can make today, if any, and you know, whether it worked in this album, in your opinion. I
mean, like, I don't think Jauz adapts that, because like this has been a huge thing like this year and last year, with bringing like UK and like Chime and you know, Oliver's and those kind of guys. They're all kind of working toward a similar thing and trying to bring back like old school, putting garage elements in there as well. I see where Jauz is coming from in a lot of these. Like, oh yeah, I could see how that could be referencing like an old house tune. That's one of the things I'd compliment him, is that he kind of understands where his roots are a bit. He knows, I'd say he's well educated into like where bass house comes from, and like being able to kind of break that down and spread it across the album. I think he did a decent job with that. But it didn't necessarily, the album didn't stick out to me for that reason. I'd say like the main thing that's hanging over my head with this is like the concept and just how messy it is. Like, I guess, like, I appreciate certain songs for those reasons, I guess, but like it still doesn't fix a lot of the big issues that I feel like this album had.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with you on that. Kind of an extension of what you're saying there. It's true. I think for me, the kind of the good impressions that I have of this album don't really suffice. Overall, I feel like it's an album that just kind of pushes for these like kind of like the higher echelons of production, but does way too much and almost tries too hard in that pursuit, meaning that what is there is just that there's just not really enough substance to it, in spite of how hard he tries and how ambitious he is. It just doesn't really offer enough, and as I said earlier, just could have been way more appealing as a project had he narrowed down the amount of tracks he was doing and worked much more on the ones that were there.
Oh, for sure. I totally get what you were saying earlier about certain songs just feeling half-baked. Like this album, I'd say more than anything, he tries, like I was kind of mentioning, I guess, like he kind of spreads out these chapters, which in my book aren't really that interesting. I'm not that enticed by the story of this. So you're listening to a bunch of different songs, to just a bunch of different like half-baked songs to fill in the gaps between the chapters of this story that just aren't that compelling. But
for sure.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying in that regard. I like when I'm looking at the quality of some of these tunes compared to, like, let's say Feel the Volume or like Deeper Love or Claim to Be or those kind of tunes, like I don't know, when I was looking back,
he's made some great songs.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not a Jauz hater by any stretch, you know, but like I don't know. He could have done more with this album. Had it been slimmed down, had he have focused less on trying to push a concept that's not entirely there. And I did want to mention one more thing about the concept is like I guess why the story of this didn't really encapsulate me is obviously there was the part about just the vocal delivery being a little bit off. Like it feels acted. I guess it feels like I'm in the American political season, except it's like 10 times worse. And like so the thing is, you start at the beginning. Jauz offers you like choose the wise, choose the wicked. Which side are you going to choose? And then like we get these little bits of dialogue from each side, like we're watching some kind of presidential debate or something like that. Like they are the bad people and we're the good people, and this is why you should be on our side. So here's the thing. He spends the entire album with these chapters trying to get you to side with one side or the other, and then just completely throws it out the window in chapter 4 when he's like, oh, why are you trying to choose one side or the other when everyone should be united and we should celebrate like being able to blend all those things together. It just like there's no story progression that gets me to believe that this is a satisfying ending to the album at all. Like it's such an odd shift to me. Like it just doesn't it doesn't make me feel anything.
But do you come out of it in any way kind of thinking, you know, props to him for trying and being this ambitious.
Yeah, no, like
trying all of these genres and like taking us, or trying to at least take us on this journey.
I think the thing is a lot of people who, and I'm not necessarily saying this with you because you always like look at a conceptual approach, I feel like, in a way that a lot of people don't, but I feel like most people that are bass heads are not necessarily going to be looking at albums for like how well a concept is executed. So I don't necessarily feel like Jauz was going for trying to make this a really like amazing, mind-blowing concept album. I feel like more than anything he just put together kind of, it feels to me like the dialogue is a little bit like sloppily written. I just feel this I don't know, it like he tried to kind of put something there, but didn't want to put in the work to make this album like deeply conceptual and like make it work as a concept album, even though he's marketing it that way. So bass heads are going to listen to this album and be like, wow, it's really cool that Jauz did this like cool concept album, and like being able to put all these chapters in and try to make a story, but it's not going to be people who are actually looking for the concept to be well executed, I guess I'd say.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, yeah, with fans of bass music, I think a lot of them, you know, are people that are kind of I don't want to assume here, but you know, shorter attention spans than other kinds of music. So a lot of people here will be skipping to the drops, knowing that Jauz has done incredible drops before, and like not really caring for the continuity with it. So it is, I think, as you're kind of implying with what you're saying, is like, who is this thing really appealing to, you know, if anyone? It's like, you know, who is he making this album for? What is it exactly that he wants us to get from it? Is it the music? Is it the story? Is it more of a kind of looking forward thing, as you were saying earlier, with this being a new chapter in his career? It's just it's almost an album that like kind of makes you think a bit too much about it, which is weird to say, but there's almost too much going on for me to really appreciate any aspects of it as wholes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I definitely get it. And I come out of this album like, I don't know, at least with me, like building up to this review, I've been like, when I'm listening through it, I do a lot of skipping because it's just like there's so much repetition throughout the tracks, and it's like I don't care to listen to any of the interludes or anything. But I come out of this album knowing that there were at least like 5 or 6 tracks that I thought were pretty enjoyable and that I definitely come back to. and that I would like suggest to other people for sure. Like let's say I might have like a positive conversation with an Adventure Club fan, you know, and say like I really enjoyed that tune that they did with Jauz on this album, you know, something like that. I didn't come out of this album though thinking like, wow, like Jauz did a concept album. This was so cool and everything. But no, I think this album does appeal to an extent because it's like, and I appreciate the fact that people like him and people like Barely Alive are trying to kind of introduce concept albums to this vein. I just don't think, like in terms of like my music history and like concept albums I've deeply enjoyed, I just don't think this album did it that well. But I do appreciate that he's at least trying to do that. You know?
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of overall feeling I have of it. You know, I'm really liking. I think I've mentioned it already, but I'm really enjoying the ambition of this thing. And it's like, you know, he wanted to create a story. He is at this point in his career where everyone said, oh, okay, you've done all of this, you've explored all of these genres, but what have you like really got to show for it? A few collaborations, a few massive tracks, and he's, you know, hailed as one of the, you know, best producers by so many people. He comes out with this, it's like, you know, yeah, well done. I mean, you've gone ahead and done that. You haven't just put out an album, you've put out 23 tracks with interludes. It creates a story. Well, that's debatable for some people, but you've at least tried to do that. But yeah, there is just not enough substance to it, I think, as we're both agreeing on.
Yeah. Given how many tracks this album has, I would agree it's very substanceless.
Yeah.
Like any other, I don't know, if you look back at the history of like rock albums, that like concept albums, like let's say like Pink Floyd's The Wall, for example, like that's a concept album that's going to go down in history, and it's about equally as long, like an hour and a half, 2 hours kind of deal. And it's like, just looking at what Jauz was able to do here in that time span, it just seems so minimal compared to other artists who have made these lengthy concept albums.
Yeah, for sure. Have to agree. And kind of, I suppose, drawing this review to a close, there was one small point that I just wanted to touch on at the end. And it is in addressing the final track, Superfly, which we have talked about briefly already.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to ask you if you thought there was anything about this track that kind of makes it fitting as an ending to a 23 track concept sort of album.
Absolutely not. So I think the track is fine. Like I might even call it one of my favorites. I think the way that he adapts, like, I don't even know, like, I guess you could say it has some, like, Russian hard bass influence in it, but I like the way he kind of, like, pulls things together on this song. However, I do not think this works as a closer in the slightest. Like, this is not the kind of, I don't know, maybe, I don't even know, like, which track on this album I could say, like, would make a decent closer. Maybe Frequency, maybe. But like, yeah, it's just nothing about this track to me says like, hey, the album's ending here, like this is how the story concludes or anything, or like, it just, it just feels like that this whole, like I already mentioned, this whole back end, this whole 6 tracks here is just completely discombobulated. It doesn't make any sense in the in the context of the album.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like, you know, at this point, when it got to Say Never and Back Again, I'm like, okay, like a lot of it is sounding relatively similar at this point, and we're getting towards the end. There's no real sense of winding down. And, you know, we all know Jauz. We know by now that he loves to dip in and out of genres, and we've seen already that he can do the calmer, prettier stuff. Why hasn't he gone for some, like, epic, ethereal, magical number to close this thing off?
Yep.
And kind of give a sense of reflection on the whole album. Do you know what I mean? He's just gone straight in with another like banger when it just doesn't fit at all.
I totally agree with that, because a lot of these songs toward the end are sort of similar sounding, like bass house tunes. And by this point, you're listening through the album, and then this song comes on, and given that you're not already like looking at the track list while you're doing it, like the track stops and you're thinking like, wait, like that was it? Like we've got we've got 23 tracks here, and you finish off on something that, though I don't think it's not a special song at all, like a track that doesn't differentiate itself as an album closer, I guess. Like it's weird.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. But yeah, I suppose that leads us quite nicely into what I usually do with a review, whether it's an EP or album review, and that is to pick a favourite track, and I can already kind of tell, I think, which one you're going to go for. But if you know, if it's different, or even if it's the same than what I think it is, then go ahead and just give a little, I don't know, few points why you think it's the best track.
You know, I'm just gonna give it straight to the Jauz and Snails tune. I'm not gonna say the name, but I'm gonna say that
don't want to get demonetized or anything.
Yeah, like that, and I don't know. Yeah, I'd say like overall that would probably just be my favorite track on this album. Like it was the one that certainly surprised me the most out of the bunch. Like I think I already mentioned my first time listening, I was a little thrown off that it doesn't necessarily sound like Jauz and Snails work together on mashing together their signature sounds, but I feel like this song was able to kind of take both of their abilities and kind of flesh them together in a unique way, and made for a definite highlight on the album for me. So
definitely, definitely, all those things. I'd even go as far as saying it's the best Snails thing I've heard in like a couple of years, to be honest.
Really?
Like,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's tailed off a fair bit.
Yeah.
You know, he took the vomit step thing a bit too overboard, and then the other stuff he's been trying for me just hasn't really hit me in the same way as his first few tracks. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one as well. I love the kind of Kill the Noise-esque kind of vibe to the introduction.
Yeah.
Which is a weird thing that I kind of picked up on when I was listening to it. Kind of reminded me of Kill the Noise stuff. But yeah, it's the main lead is really sweet, and yeah, probably enjoying that one the most as well. Coupled with acid or techno, I think that's a really good
I totally
midway
agree
point
with
through that album to be like, okay, we've had that bit before, and now it's like tracks 9 and 10, and we've got these bangers in the middle to kind of frame everything around. So at least there was that.
Okay, I'll also say, to go along with this, because this is something that I wanted to mention, the transition from Chapter 2, Wicked Nature, into the Jauz Snails collaboration I thought was really, really cheeky. Because you're listening to it, and it's all like, go to your primal instincts and fight and everything, and then and then the vocal just at the beginning of this song, it just feels like, it kind of feels like Jauz is just like messing with you a little bit, like just trying to have a little bit of fun with like the concept and trying to transition that. So I really liked how those work together, and acid or techno as well. I thought was a great track to fit in this spot. So yeah,
they are definitely the points in the album where I just found myself, you know, going all, you know, that is proper naughty kind of thing. So you know, that was like properly got me going. And the final thing that I do when I'm doing a review is I give recommendations to anyone that enjoyed this album and who would maybe want to listen to something similar. I know a lot of stuff is covered in this album, so maybe, I don't know, sound design wise or production wise, maybe give something that you think would be remotely similar to what is offered by Jauz here.
Oh man. Jeez. You know, honestly, like, just looking at this album as a whole, I might suggest the new AC Slater album.
Okay.
I feel like there are some kind of similar things going on, especially, at least with the tracks that I enjoyed. I feel like they might be going for kind of a similar thing there.
I think I would have to go... I think, funnily enough, I would actually go for the Mystifying Oracle.
Yeah, that's definitely one I'd suggest too.
Yeah, just in terms of like running with a specific genre for a lot of an album, and a lot of it sounding quite similar in terms of, you know, where the emphasis lies on specific styles and like the drum patterns, and you know whether they're actually good or not. But yeah, I think I've found a lot of similarities listening to both of those. Yeah, I think we're gonna round it up there. Thank you very much, Landon, for joining me on this review of
always
Jauz's
a pleasure
album. Always a pleasure, and I await the next one. I wonder what it will be.
Yeah, we'll have to figure it out, because I know I want to do more stuff with you. So, you know,
sounds good.
We'll see what happens.
Have you got any closing thoughts on the album or anything in general?
Closing thoughts, I guess just a quick wrap up. I'd say like this album certainly had some decent songs. I'd say I enjoyed a fair chunk of this album, but the concept is completely sloppy, and I don't appreciate it on that aspect at all.
Fair enough. Sounds good. Yeah, I think I would side with that. This is an album that I think I will be returning to just a couple times more to kind of cement which songs I like the most and kind of identify those and listen to those again and again, because there are a lot of catchy moments running through this thing. It's just pretty much all of the songs I can't really listen to the whole way through, because there are a lot of things detracting from the better parts. But yeah, it offers a decent amount, but not a lot in my opinion. Thank you guys all very much for watching, and I shall see you legends in the next one. Peace out.
Peace.